Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas here with you this morning, and we are welcoming Terry Hopton. She is with Dead Serious About Life. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning.
Dead Serious About Life sounds interesting. Tell us about it.
It is a production that we will be bringing to the Louisville area, and it is a musical production that deals with teenage issues. The main issue is teenage suicide. So it brings awareness to kind of what students are really struggling with in their life and brings it out in the production.
Musical and suicide seem like mutually exclusive types of things.
Yeah.
How did you merge those two?
Well, we wanted to write a program that was geared towards students as an outreach to help them find better direction in their life. So we actually wrote the show to appeal to teenagers and put a musical twist with it. And so basically the storyline is mom and dad leave for the weekend, so the kids have a party. And at the party you meet these 16 main characters and see all the things that they struggle with, from drugs to alcohol to self-esteem to bullying. There's a character that's invited to the party as a joke. And so you see all of this come out in the party itself. And then halfway through the show, one of the main characters finds out his girlfriend is pregnant, and that's just the last straw. And so he goes to his friend's bedroom and commits suicide.
Oh, my.
So he writes the suicide note. It's to music, and then you'll hear a gunshot, and the next scene is then the funeral scene. And the rest of the show from that point on is then focused on how do you pick up the pieces of your life? How do you move on after a suicide? What choices are you making in your life? So it's a very pro-life, very pro-relationship with the Lord message that's communicated at the end of the program.
Who wrote this, Terry?
Myself and a few other people that helped put the script together. And then we let our students every year rip the script apart and make changes so it's updated and, kind of in tune with where students are today.
And that was my very next question, was there input from young people? Because even the terminology changes within the hour.
Absolutely. Like, the way I would talk isn't necessarily the way the kids would talk. 15 years ago, cutting became a huge issue, and so we decided to write that into the show. So we created a character that deals with cutting. So we really get input from the kids. The number one drug of choice now is heroin, because you can get a hit of heroin for under $10.
Oh, my.
So that's now become the drug that's at the party, is heroin, versus, cocaine or pot or, some other type of drug. It's now heroin because that's where the students are right now.
Who are your actors?
They're high school students. They audition to be a part of our group each year. We're in the middle of auditioning for next year's group right now. So they audition and then travel with us. Once they make the group, they travel with us for a year from July until June. So this year they come from 20 different high schools in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, and then they will re-audition each year to be a part of it, or we'll add new students as well.
Sure. And when you travel, is this throughout Ohio, or does it reach further?
We go all over, pretty much wherever people call us and want to book us. During the school year, we're traveling on weekends, so we typically try to stay within 4 or 5 hours of the Cincinnati area. Then in June, we take a longer tour. Next year's tour is going to be to Colorado Springs, Colorado. So,
wow.
But we've gone all over. As far south as Florida. We've done the entire East Coast, and out west to Nebraska, Colorado, places like that.
Wow. What's the reception to something like this?
It's pretty crazy. The stories, that I've gotten from students afterwards, are really why we continue to do what we're doing. We were at a show in northern Kentucky, and a young girl walked out of the auditorium and pulled a loaded gun out of her purse,
No.
laid it on the table in front of one of our moms, and said, "I won't be needing this anymore, thank you," and walked out of the auditorium.
I'm absolutely speechless.
Yeah.
What did you do next?
Called the police and turned the gun in.
Goodness.
But, I mean, just crazy things like that. Emails I get from students. We were in Piqua, Ohio, and there was a young girl who was being sexually molested. And she actually, after seeing the show, decided she needed to change her life and walked into the police department and reported the guy. And the detective on the case called me and said, we want to know what you're doing in this show that's giving kids the guts to change their life.
Wow.
He said, we're going to go to trial next week and nail this guy. All because this girl sat in the show and just was like, okay, I've got to change. I talked to a young man after one of our shows. He had tried to hang himself on a Tuesday and didn't succeed. Came to our show on a Friday, and I got to talk with him after the show, and he still had rope burns on his neck from trying to hang himself.
Oh, my gosh.
4 days earlier. So, just some kids, we can't even send them home. We have to call Children's Services.
Yes.
Or take them directly, to a hospital, depending on what they're dealing with. After our production, we do an invitation where we allow kids to come back into what we call a listening room, where they can just talk to an adult about what they're struggling with. And so in that room is where we see a lot of kids, just really seeking, better answers or what do I do? How do I get out of this? And it could be something as simple as, I had a fight with my mom, or, we've had girls come in there that are pregnant that don't know how to tell their mom, or we had a girl that came in once who was raped in the 6th grade at church camp and had never told anyone until that night. So, if you were to ask any of our students on stage, why do you do this instead of your productions at your high schools, they'll tell you it's the eternal value.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're changing somebody's life and knowing that you're having a part in that, they said there's nothing like it.
We're speaking with Terri Hopton. She is director and writer. I would say screenplay because I'm thinking this ought to be a film as well. But right now it is a touring production of Dead Serious About Life. Terri, from your perspective, are things just harder now, or do we know more?
I think they're harder. I think kids are having to deal with adult problems way too early in their life. And the kids are having a tendency to just check out. It's easier if I just commit suicide and they don't have to deal with it. We always say, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But the latest statistic is it's every 4 seconds a teenager is attempting suicide.
What?
Yeah, every 4 seconds.
Is that in the United States or worldwide?
Yes, it's in the United States.
Oh, my gosh.
So it's the second leading killer of teenagers today. But people don't want to talk about it because it makes them uncomfortable. And I just keep telling people it's about time we start talking about the uncomfortable things because we're losing our kids.
Well, I'm wondering, is that why the students who choose to travel with you and take this message around, have they been impacted in some way by any of these issues?
Oh, yeah. A lot of them have even struggled with the whole issue. When I ask our students how many of them have contemplated suicide, 3/4 of them raise their hand. And these are Christian kids that are pretty grounded. So if our Christian kids are feeling this way, can you imagine what the non-Christian students are feeling like, or,
Just hopeless.
And you're going to get the same reaction if you were to ask your youth group students, and they were going to be honest enough with you.
Any idea why?
It's just they're dealing with really adult issues that they can't figure out how to handle.
And I'm wondering if have we broken down real relationships, authentic relationships with all the technology?
Oh yeah, I think that's a part of it. I think the breakdown of the family. There's not the strong relationship with parents. I think all of that plays a factor into it.
Dead Serious About Life sounds like a hard play to watch. How do we get people who need to be there?
It's word of mouth is what sells it the best. It's just somebody telling somebody else. If parents are out there who have a teenager that they're struggling with, it's definitely a play or a production to get your students to. I tell kids all the time, I don't care if they come because they think the girl on the poster is hot.
For whatever works.
Whatever motivates them to get them there, because they're going to hear the message. We always say, Dead Serious About Life, makes you take a second look at life. It doesn't matter how old you are. You can't sit there and not be affected in some way in watching the show.
Now, I'm wondering, how about the adults who see this? Do you get response from them as well?
Yeah, I tell most adults when they come to the show to hold on to the bottom of their seat, and it will be over very soon. Because we didn't write it for adults. We wrote it for teenagers, and that's what you have to really keep in mind. Most adults that come up to me that say, oh, I don't like this part of the show, or I don't like this part of the show, I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to it because it's the students that we're listening to. Mm-hmm. That's who we wrote it for. All through Act 1, if you didn't know it, you would not know that you're at a Christian production whatsoever. Mm-hmm. It's not until Act 2, that God or Jesus is mentioned in a positive way, shape, or form until the funeral scene.
Oh, my. It's rated what?
We recommend 6th through 12th grade students.
So as young as 6th grade?
Yes. Anything younger than 6th grade, you have to look at the maturity of the children. We just had a 13-year-old here commit suicide.
Oh, man.
So you really have to look at the maturity of the students. How are they as far as social issues and things like that?
What brought you to Louisville?
Well, we were looking for a place in northern Ohio to come to do part of our summer tour, because after we do the shows, we're going to take a few days off and just go play. So we wanted to go play up in northern Ohio because we haven't been up there in a while. And so my college roommate lives in Louisville, and so she was like, come to Louisville. And so that's where we're heading. We prefer smaller towns versus the large, Chicago's or bigger cities like that.
And why is that?
We like going to smaller communities because you have a better outreach opportunity, because there are not as many opportunities with students. We went to Auburn, Nebraska one year for our summer tour, and everybody's like, Auburn, Nebraska? Are you kidding me? But nothing comes to Auburn, Nebraska. So we were the hit of the town.
Wow.
So, we really would prefer going into smaller communities.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Terry Hopton is the director and writer of Dead Serious About Life. You kind of alluded to what I needed to know next. This is heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. What do you all do to decompress in between programs and
our students are required to go to accountability groups that we do every other week that are led by adults. So our kids are actively in groups where we're constantly, how are you doing? What's going on in your world? What do you need to talk about? So we're pretty on top of where our kids are emotionally, physically, mentally, and really, listening to where they're at and what's going on. Mm-hmm. So those are every other week that our students are required to be a part of.
Smart. We got to take a break. We'll be back with more after these words. You're listening to Our Community.